Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is something a little different, a deep dive into the evolution of British railway signalling systems. It's one of the most fascinating, yet often overlooked, aspects of the railway world. Think about it, trains are massive, fast-moving machines that share a limited number of tracks. So how do they avoid crashing into each other? How do drivers know when to stop, go, or slow down? The answer lies in signalling. From handheld flags to digital control centers powered by artificial intelligence, the UK signalling systems have come a long way over nearly 2 centuries. So grab a drink, settle in, and join me on this journey through time, from the early 1800s to the cutting-edge technology shaping the railways of tomorrow. Let's start right at the beginning, the early 19th century. Britain's first passenger railway, the Liverpool and Manchester Railway, opened in 1830. It was revolutionary at the time, but it didn't have what we'd recognize today as a signalling system. Trains simply ran based on time intervals. One train would leave, and the next would wait a fixed number of minutes before departing. There were no signals, no block sections, just the clock and hope that the train ahead didn't break down. This system, as you can imagine, had its flaws. As railways grew more popular and more trains were put on the lines, relying on time alone became dangerous. If a train stopped unexpectedly, due to mechanical failure or a derailment, the train behind it wouldn't know until it was too late. And that led to accidents. Serious ones. One of the earliest and most notorious was the Clayton Tunnel crash of 1861, where 2 trains collided inside a tunnel near Brighton, killing 23 people. That tragedy happened even though signalmen were already in place, but the system was based on time gaps and human judgment. It proved that something more reliable was needed. That's when the railway industry began experimenting with fixed signals. Initially, this meant simple visual aids like boards, discs, or hand signals, often used by a policeman stationed along the line. These railway policemen would wave flags during the day and lamps at night. If the flag was red, the train stopped. Green meant go. This was basic, but it was the beginning of a more structured approach. The breakthrough came with the invention of the semaphore signal in the 1840s, which soon became the standard across the growing network. These were mechanical arms mounted on tall posts that could be seen from a distance. When horizontal, they indicated stop. When inclined at a 45-degree angle, they meant proceed with caution or clear. Semaphore signals allowed drivers to make decisions based on what they could see ahead, not just what time it was when they left the last station. By the 1850s, the idea of dividing the railway into block sections began to take shape. Each section would only be occupied by one train at a time. Initially, block working was still manual. Operators would communicate with each other using bells, telegraphs, and eventually signal boxes, which began appearing trackside in the mid-19th century. In 1856, the London and North Western Railway became the first to adopt the block system on a large scale. And by the 1870s, the Regulation of Railways Act made block working with proper signalling a legal requirement for passenger lines. So, in just a few decades, British railways went from guesswork and flag waving to mechanical signals and coordinated communication. It wasn't perfect, yet, but it laid the foundation for everything that came after. As we roll into the late 19th century and the early 20th, railway signalling in Britain enters what many consider its golden age. The semaphore system had become standard practice, and now it was being refined. This was a time of innovation, expansion, and immense pride in the railway network. Britain's railway infrastructure was not just functional, it was admired around the world. The humble signal box became an iconic part of the British railway landscape. These were small wooden or brick structures located beside the track, typically elevated with large windows to provide visibility. Inside, you'd find a bank of levers, each connected mechanically to signals and points, what we now call switches. The signalman, or signaller, would pull these levers based on a strict set of rules and timetables to control train movement through his section of the line. These boxes were part of what's called the absolute block system, which meant only one train was allowed in a block section at a time. Signalmen would communicate with each other using bell codes and early telegraph instruments, passing messages like "train entering section" or "line clear." Every move was recorded in a train register book, creating a paper trail of every train that passed through. By the early 20th century, major stations and busy junctions had enormous signal boxes with dozens, even hundreds, of levers. One of the most famous was the Crewe North Junction box, which reportedly had over 300 levers at its peak. Think about that, 300 physical levers, all linked to wires, pulleys, and rods stretching out along the line. It was a huge feat of engineering, and it worked with remarkable reliability. The signaling systems of this period were governed by precision and discipline. The rule book, first introduced in 1889, laid out detailed procedures for signalers and drivers to follow. And it wasn't just semaphores anymore. Innovations like distant signals, which warned drivers of what to expect at the next signal, added a layer of safety. Signals began using colored lenses, typically red for stop, green for go, often lit by oil lamps at night. During this time, another critical advancement was made: interlocking. This was a mechanical safety system that physically prevented signalmen from setting conflicting routes. For example, if one line was already in use, the interlocking mechanism would stop you from accidentally setting another train on a collision course. Interlocking reduced human error dramatically and became a cornerstone of safe railway operation. And it wasn't just passenger routes that benefited. Britain's vast network of freight and goods lines also used mechanical signaling. Some rural routes remained manually signaled well into the 20th century, a testament to how well the system worked even on limited infrastructure. By the 1920s and 1930s, semaphore signals had reached their peak, with more sophisticated designs appearing, including upper quadrant and lower quadrant styles, basically describing the direction the arm moved when clearing the signal. While the differences may seem minor, they represented ongoing efforts to standardize and improve visibility for train drivers. As the railways were grouped into the Big Four companies in 1923, the LNER, LMS, GWR, and SR, each had its own variations and approaches to signaling, but the core principles remained the same. Uniformity was gradually improving, helped by government oversight and the growing influence of central railway boards. This golden age carried on through World War II, when the railways became vital to the war effort, moving troops, equipment, and supplies across the country under tight schedules. Signalers were key workers during this time, and many women took up the role in place of enlisted men. By the late 1940s and into the 1950s, mechanical signaling still ruled, but the winds of change were beginning to blow. The next era would introduce electricity, relays, and eventually computers. But for now, semaphore arms, clunking levers, and the rhythmic tap of bell codes defined the heartbeat of Britain's railways. In Part 3, we'll explore how signaling evolved through electrification and early computerization, and how Britain started moving toward modern light signals and relay systems. So stay tuned, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this historical journey. Until next time, happy driving!